Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister denies that there was Chinese interference. He said in English that there had been very little influence or no significant interference. I wonder at what point does the interference go from insignificant to a lot? The Chinese community in Papineau, very quickly after a Chinese bank was authorized in Canada. Is that interference or influence? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague is raising an important question, and that is, should politicians and partisan accusations determine whether or not there was interference, problematic interference in our democracy and in our elections? And that's why we've put the decision in the hands of our national security agencies and officials. That's why I created a panel precisely to look at these issues in an objective and independent way, in an arm's length manner. And they have reviewed the elections in 2019 and 2021. The honourable member for Blanchet. Allow me to make better use of my 35 seconds. In 2016, $70 million coming from the Chinese community in Toronto and Montreal were funneled into the riding of Papineau, the Prime Minister's riding, at a time when a Chinese bank was seeking the green light in Canada. Once again, is that influence or interference? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, questions about interference and in our democratic processes and our elections, those are fundamental and very important questions. I understand that the honourable member is trying to challenge the integrity of our institutions, but Canadians can be confident that in the processes that we have set up to ensure the integrity of our elections, to review the integrity of our elections, we can confirm that despite the fact that there is ongoing interference in our country, our democratic institutions and elections were not affected. Mr. Speaker, it's not about the integrity of institutions. We're talking about the integrity of the Liberal Party of Canada. The Prime Minister refused to denounce China's genocide against the Uyghurs, and they promised to condemn China's treatment of the Uyghurs. Can the Prime Minister tell us whether there's been any investigation of Chinese funding of the riding of Papineau in 2016? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I understand that sovereignists want to attack the integrity of Canadian institutions, but the fact is that since 2015, we have significantly increased the tools used to ensure the strength of our institutions. We struck a national committee on election monitoring, and the Bloc voted against everything we did in that regard. We set up a panel to review foreign interference. We set up a panel to prevent foreign money from funding our elections. We have better controls over online platforms. The honourable member for Blanchet. Well, it's not because I'm a sovereignist that I'm opposed to the funding of Justin Trudeau, rather the member for Papineau's riding. If the Prime Minister thinks there's been no interference, I'm wondering about the 11 ridings. Is Papineau one of the 11 ridings, or is it the 12th? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We all know full well that the leader of the Bloc likes to listen to himself speak, but perhaps he should listen to others, because I have said a number of times that Canada and our other allies are regular targets of foreign governments like China, and that there is interference, even including during our elections. So when I raised my concerns about Chinese interference in Canada, That's precisely what I was talking about. And we took steps to ensure the integrity of our elections, and those steps worked. And it was found that our elections there was full integrity.
The Prime Minister is talking about everything, but he hasn't said the word Comté de Papineau once. To protect our democracy, he seems more sensitive to the funding by foreign interests and the British Crown. So let's start over. Does the Prime Minister recognize that in 2016, in 48 hours, his riding received $70,000 of funding from Chinese foreign nationals? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we set up measures to protect the integrity of our institutions and our elections and our electoral funding. We have always followed all the rules about elections funding, and we've introduced new measures so that Canadians can trust our system in spite of personal attacks from politicians. Canadians can be reassured that our institutions and the rules that regulate those institutions are being upheld. The integrity of our institutions has not been undermined. The member for Blanchet. Presuming that I'll get nothing more precise than that, I'll take that as a yes. Papineau received $70,000 from Chinese foreign interest in 48 hours in 2016. 2 questions. Was he briefed on the funding in his riding? Second thing that I'm interested in, was there an investigation into the funding in his riding? Was he subject to funding, interference, or influence of Chinese origin in the Papineau riding in 2016? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, our election rules at the federal level have ensured for some time that the only people who can give to political parties, to federal political parties, are Canadian citizens and residents of Canada. I think that maybe there are suggestions here that are walking on the line of stereotyping China. I think that we have citizens involved in many different ridings, and we reach out to Canadians of all origins to participate in the electoral process.